Hey, good morning. Welcome back to the Themuzshop. I noticed last night I was running out of coffee beans. And so I placed an order online. And what I do is I go get green coffee beans and I come back and I roast them here. So I thought that it'd be a good idea to show you guys the process that I go through to make a cup of coffee here at the Themuzshop. So let's go pick up the coffee, take a ride with me. We'll come back, we'll get in the kitchen, and we'll start roasting. Hi.
Hi, Mike.
Have a good day. Okay, we're back. I got enough coffee to last me a while. Anyway, this is from everywhere. I got some from Brazil. I got some from Costa Rica, Guatemala, New Guinea, Ethiopia. Pour in your coffee beans. All right, now that we've got the beans in the pot and we're over the flame, it's go time. Around 4 to 5 minutes, you'll get some smoke, which is actually steam, which all the moisture is releasing from the beans, and you'll get this smell of like burning grass. So around 6 to 7 minutes, you're going to start getting more of a coffee smell, and the beans are going to be changing color. Now at 8 to 9, all the beans are getting a darker color brown, and you're also getting a lot more smell of the roasting of the beans. Around 10, 11, 12 minutes, you'll start seeing the chaff separate from the bean itself, and it's getting a little bit browner, and the smell is getting a little more intense, and you're just starting to hear some cracking. Now it's starting to pop a little bit. Hear the cracking. Okay, so the pop is ended. You wait about 30 seconds to a minute, then you pull it off. Dump it into a big tray, cooling it off as soon as possible. And what I do is I steal my wife's blow dryer, go out to the yard, and blow off all the chaff and into the garden, because chaff is good compost. All right, so before we start grinding and brewing, let's talk about the roast. So over here is my roast, and over here is a popular coffee supplier. Here we got a nice brown roast. This is a little bit darker than I would like, but it's fine. It's a good color. Here is supposed to be a French roast, which, in my opinion, this is charcoal. This has lost everything. You've lost your caffeine, and you've lost all the flavors that comes with the bean. And contrary to popular belief, a dark cup of coffee has less caffeine than a light cup of coffee. The caffeine has been burnt out of it, and so has all the flavors. So, for instance, here's a bag of Sweet Maria's green coffee, and on the label even tells you what you're expecting if you roast it correctly. You got brown sugar, you got apple, you got 5 spices, you got some orange oil, some caramel sweetness, and some cocoa, which you'll taste if you brew it correctly. If you brew it like this, you're going to taste a charcoal cup of dark coffee, which I think, in my opinion, is ruined. Good coffee starts off with nice, clean, purified water. All right, so while our water is warming up, let's talk about the grind part, which is very important because you want a consistent grind throughout. And this right here, this propeller helicopter looking thing, is very inconsistent. I used to use this, but it's not a consistent grind at all. There's no way to control it. So what you need to get is you need to get yourself a burr grinder. For coffee, there's only really two ingredients. One is the water and one is the coffee beans. And you want the best roast with the most consistent grind with purified water. And doing that, you have a good chance of getting a good cup of coffee. Okay, now it's time to get to the brewing part of it. And there's several ways of brewing. There's, French press, drip over, your coffee maker. So I like this AeroPress. It makes 1 cup of coffee, which is fine. And then if I want another cup of coffee, I make another cup of coffee. I don't have a pot sitting with half a pot of coffee on a warmer half the day and, or end up throwing it away. So for me, this works out perfect. So what you got to do is you put your filter in, and this is a disposable filter. You can buy this stainless steel reusable one, and they both seem to work fine. Some people claim that you taste a little bit of the paper, but I don't think so. So what you do is you screw it into the bottom, and then you take your freshly grinded coffee, and I put 2 scoops. You can do what you want. You could put in, whatever you want. 1, 1.5, what have you. And you set it up on top of your cup. But what I like to do prior to that, I like to warm this cup up first. So what I'll do, and I'll take the pot off the fire for just about a minute or so, so it's not too hot to brew with. You don't want it boiling. So what I do here is I prime the cup, and I warm it up. So that way your coffee will be nice and warm. All right. So you got your coffee in there. You got your cups warm. Your boiling water has sat for about a minute. So it reaches below 200 down to 180-ish. And now what I do is I prime the coffee. I'll pour in just a little bit, like that. Let all the gases escape. Look at that. Oh man, that looks good. Okay, so now that I got the coffee primed, and it's been seeping here for a little bit, and I've stirred it a few times, I'm going to put the remaining water in here. Now for this cup, I can't fill up too much water, so I go right about there. What I usually make my coffee in is this mug that Chad made me from Mancrafting, and I fill this all the way up and let it seep for a little bit and then fill it up again, so I get myself a big full cup of coffee. But just so you guys can see it down here, I'm using this glass little mug. So I let my coffee steep for about 2 minutes or so. I'll give it another stir, and then I'll plunge it. And by plunging it, you take your time. You just use the weight of your hand on there and just let it slowly push the water on through the coffee into your cup. There you go. Doesn't that look good? Now that is a good cup of coffee. Not only is that a good cup of coffee, but you roasted it, so it's going to be the best cup of coffee you ever made, right? So The other thing I want to point out is that green coffee beans are way cheaper than roasted coffee beans. And I think this is close to half the price. The ones I buy from parts of the world that are like $6 and $7 a pound. And I believe your big popular roasted beans are close to $14, $12, $14, somewhere in that range. I don't know. I haven't bought roasted beans in years. So it's a cheap route and it's a better route. I don't know how, you can't go wrong. I'll put a link to where I get my coffee, and I'll put also a link down below to where I get some of these gadgets. So I hope you enjoyed this. This is Moose in the Kitchen. One of the best parts about this AeroPress is the cleanup. You just pop off this bottom and boop.